Hi, welcome to Equity.Guru's Gauntlet series, where we talk to public company CEOs and give them a little bit of a harder question than sometimes they're used to. Today I'm talking to Karim Rayani from Falcon Gold and Marble Discovery. And is there anything else out there that you've got your name on right now?
Yeah, we got Power One, we got Lattimark Resources. Lattimark will be a spin out of Falcon, so we can definitely touch on that.
Okay, great. So Falcon Gold is, let's say, small. Would be a pretty accurate way to describe it. It's when we first started covering the company, it cost about the same as a Burnaby 2-bedroom condo. Market cap has increased by about 5x since then, so a success by any measure. But if people look at the share chart over the last year and a half, what they'd see is something that looks akin to a wave ripple on a lake. What do you think Falcon Gold needs to get out of the 7 cents to 12 cents sort of back and forth?
You know, we've been in a fairly quiet period the last year and a half. One of the biggest things that really kills these junior companies is dilution. I'm very dilution resistant. I like to raise money only when I have to. We could have diluted this thing a year and a half ago and added 30-40 million shares to the share count. I kind of did the opposite. I funded a lot of the operations myself. We've done 3 successful rounds of drilling at our flagship asset, the Central Canada project. 230,000 ounces, historic resource, grading 10 grams. I try and look, in these certain situations, 2, 3, 4 years out. The one thing with Falcon is it is a high volume trader, so it swings, and because of that, we're kind of our own worst enemy. However, people are making money. We have a great audience. Falcon 2 years back was the #1 trader on the venture exchange, and because of that, we have these swings. To answer your question, the next 6 months for Falcon, I think we're probably going to break through this resistance as we develop our resource. We're about to start our phase 3 drilling, and all of this is leading into a story of validating the 230,000 ounces historic. It's open to depth, it's open in all directions, and we're attached to Agnico Eagle's 4.6 million ounce deposit, which from what we hear, they're planning to put that back into production.
So over the last several years, I'd say a couple of years ago, one thing that Falcon was notable for was the fact that when Rayani was in the market buying up shares at every opportunity. Not so much the last 6 months. Are you out of money, or is it no longer the value deal it once was?
I still own just shy of 10%. Obviously, I've got a big position. I still actually do buy here and there, but not as aggressive as I did. To answer your question, I've been financing most of the big rounds up until now, and we've been quiet. So I think you can probably see a lot of action from me moving forward once we start up operations again.
Once you get over that 10%, it gets a bit more complicated in terms of filings, right? So I guess that makes a bit of sense to butt up against that point.
That is, I'm in this for the long haul. I put up my money 3 years ago, and I haven't really sold a share. So, I'm in it for the big win here.
Got it. You recently repriced warrants. Can you talk a little bit about the thinking behind that?
Yeah. So, this acquisition that we did, the vendor. We attached a warrant on it, just shy of 2 years ago. They've been, very aggressive supporting the company, and the warrants are coming to expire. So I said, okay, fine. We'll try and extend them by 1 year and reprice them with a bit of a credit, for their, support.
Fair enough. And if all goes well, the company makes more money out of it.
Correct. The objective here is to do the least amount of financings and self-finance from our internal, shareholder group.
Got it. Now, Falcon's got a nice big collection of assets there. Some of them are more attractive than others, but certainly the name Falcon Gold doesn't necessarily limit you to just gold. You're sort of I won't say artful dodger when it comes to collecting resource properties, but you've certainly gone out there and got yourself a swathe of them. Is there a point where you say that's a good deal, but it's too far off my core, or do you just love grabbing something that's a bit undervalued and unappreciated?
I definitely get criticized for taking a lot of projects on. From my experience is being able to acquire these projects, when there's blood on the streets. And some of the projects we've picked up, for example, there's one in Chile, which is in the biggest copper producing region in the world. Our neighbors are BHP, Rio Tinto, Yamana. The Salvador project, Barrick just sold a 50% interest in that. Well, not just, a few years ago, for $1 billion cash to the Salvador group. And our claims are right in the center of this action. Barrick was actually after our ground. We got there first and managed to upgrade the claims. In Chile, the way it works is if you stake ground, but if you don't upgrade the claims to status 2 within a certain time frame, anyone can come and scoop them if they've staked over top of you. So, on Falcon, we're attached to multi-million ounces, not only in Chile. In Ontario, we've got the Central Canada project attached to 4.6 million ounces. In Newfoundland, there's been a lot of attention, kind of drawn to this area. Great Bear is a prime example. Great Bear, you probably remember, was sitting at 15 cents a number of years ago. Got bought out at $29 a share. Eric Sprott put out an article, or an article went out on Eric Sprott just last week, or maybe the week before. You may have saw it in the Financial Post, and he was talking about how Newfound Gold could be one of the biggest gold discoveries in the last, 10, 15, 20 years. And he put, $200 million into that company, owning 33%. Between Marvel and our sister company, Falcon, who we've partnered up with, we're probably the top 6% landholder in Newfoundland attached to multi-million ounce deposits. So, really when you're buying into Falcon, you're not buying one property, you're really buying multiple assets attached to large defined resources. So if any of these projects hit and win, we go along for the ride, whether we do anything or not, if that makes sense.
Got it. So closeology is at the heart of the business model?
It is, with Newfoundland, it's all closeology. It's all new. I mean, Newfoundland, really got set off by Newfound Gold, but it's all early days there. There's Matador Resources, which is to our northeast corner at Hope Brook. Soquimon Benton just hit the first lithium pegmatite discovery, and that ground is directly tied onto ours. And we've done geophysics. It's all the same type of system. So, we've got nickel, we've got lithium, we've got gold in Newfoundland, and until you really drill and explore these properties, you really don't know what you're sitting on. What we're waiting for right now is for the snow to clear in the next 6 weeks, and then we'll be mobilizing crews at Gander, which is tied onto the Queensway project, and Hope Brook, which is tied onto Benton, Soquimon, and Matador.
Okay. So taking closeology as a valid business model, which I'd say about 70 or 80% of the resource market does, is there one property that you look at and think, well, we've just got to advance this thing because this is legit the real deal. This isn't waiting for someone else. We're our own masters here.
Good question. The biggest problem with the current market environment is when you're competing against like a company like Newfound Gold that's hitting 50, 100 grams over some very decent widths. People don't get excited anymore about 5 and 10 gram hits, and that's really where a lot of the excitement is getting pulled out of, and you're going into the these companies that are doing the high grade.
Right.
the Central Canada project, is 230,000 ounces, grading 9.9 grams. Not a bad project. We're expanding it. I would say this is still our flagship asset. However, most of the people, as you can probably appreciate, seem to flock to more of the early stage, closeology on companies that are really hitting it big out of the park. As much as I like the Central Canada project, I think it's a winner long term, but I think a lot of people probably buy into Falcon now based on our Chile asset and based on Newfoundland. Now, I could be wrong. I'm here for the Central Canada project, and that's really the company's focus.
So is this the inspiration behind the spin-offs that you've been doing pretty regularly? Is it, to keep things a little bit straighter than just being a prospect generator and gathering in, 25 different deals?
With Falcon expanding into South America, and I think South America is one of the biggest opportunities really on the board. If you look at some of the deals out of Chile right now, on their valuations, I mean, they're doing extremely well. Falcon being more of a Canadian focus, I thought it would be in the best interest of shareholders not to dilute Falcon, to give all the shareholders, a fighting chance of getting a share dividend. So that rewards the shareholders. It keeps people focused on what we're doing, but also we're able to expand into different areas, without, further diluting the share cap. And, I love shares that have 60, 80, 100 million shares out. You've been following my companies. I don't like deals that trade by appointment. I like people to be able to go and buy a position, quite reasonably. And, as you said, a Burnaby condo, I mean, I went and bought, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 million shares, and and I'm still buying. So if that answers your question.
Well, like I said, people who got into Falcon when we first started talking about it were getting in much cheaper than they are today, and the return on the investment has been strong. I think back then you had maybe 1 or 2 projects. Now you've got a page of projects that's long enough that it's nighttime reading before bed.
Well, I'll say this, and I have to be a little careful. I think everyone is aware of what's going on when it comes to Tesla, the whole electric car movement. Obviously, trying to stay ahead of the curve, and in this, there's lots of opportunities when it comes to the nickel space, and we are currently evaluating a number of opportunities. And Falcon, as you said, we're not really a project generator because we keep most of the projects for ourselves. But as time progresses here, I think you're going to be seeing a lot of more deal flow and companies spun out and joint ventured.
So I've always had a bit of a burr under my saddle with resource companies in that they seem to be so aimed towards seniors. The green energy and Tesla and car batteries and renewables side of things sort of slides right into the younger investors' mindset. And yet you look out there at the landscape and it's still like guys with ... resources in their title, not like energy metals or, names that would appeal maybe to more of the to the moon crowd. Do you put any thought at Falcon towards that sort of model? I mean, with Marvel Discovery, I can kind of see maybe a little bit of a tilt towards the comic book collector crowd, as an example.
Yeah, the Marvel name just kind of worked out, and I think people thought I was crazy, but I think it's worked out very well. And that's another prime example of bringing in a whole new audience and base. Falcon was a company I stepped in about 3 years ago. I was a 10% shareholder, and I just kind of landed, into the CEO position without even realizing it at the time. I kind of like the old school name of Falcon. It's I thought about doing a name change and rebranding, but it's got such a large following and shareholder base. This one I've just decided just to kind of keep it old school and one by one systematically move projects forward.
Excuse me while I sneeze for a second.
Bless you.
So you've got a strategy of gathering projects on the cheap, which is, I guess, how you'd want to be gathering them, but also as you collect several of a certain type, then deciding, okay, it's time to spin out another group. So someone who's maybe been sitting on Falcon stock for a couple of years, wakes up one day, if they haven't been checking their portfolio, and finds they've got these mystery companies in there. We talk a lot about dividends being something that's great in investment, albeit rare these days, but dividend stocks is a real opportunity for people to grow out without doing anything for it.
100%. And we've got a pretty decent shareholder base. November, December last year was one of the worst tax loss seasons that we've experienced. And that's mainly from people taking record-breaking earnings. Falcon, never traded that low in the last 3 years, since I came on. Most of those shares went into, very tight hands. Just between myself and, family and friends, we own about 40 to 50% of the float. So I think Falcon is cleaner now than it was a few months ago. We got rid of a lot of the traders as we drill our central Canada and develop that, and as we get news out in Newfoundland, I think we're really set up for a run here. Also, gold is kind of been trading between 1950 and 2000. The last 2 years in the gold space was not so good. And I think with the world, kind of political environment right now, we're seeing, a lot of these things come into, favor again. So, again, it's timing. Raising money in a difficult market is never easy. But we've managed to kind of push through, and here we are. On another note, I'm kind of touch on, the whole Newfoundland, because we're able to, run a number of companies out of a simple office. We have a very low burn rate. Most of the money we raise goes directly into the ground. For the price of one acquisition in Newfoundland, we became one of the largest stakers of ground on the island. I mean, I think between the two companies, we're at about 250 to 300,000 hectares. If you look at any of the companies in Newfoundland, their property payments alone, very difficult for them to do what we did. I mean, we own 100%. We don't have any NSRs on 90% of our claims. So any money we get goes into the ground. And that really is what differentiates us. And especially moving forward, that's really what's going to separate our share, our share count and the share movement.
So Newfoundland, a couple of years back, no one was really thinking about Newfoundland at all. It's sort of come and taken a lot of people by surprise. But, true to form, when I go to your projects page on your website, you've got not one, not two, not three, but 5 properties out there. Are you just going through geo reports from random drunk guys hanging off a hill from midnight to dawn, looking for that sweet, underpriced, but potentially glorious asset?
I do a lot of reading. As a prospector myself, I get myself very excited. But in this business, in order to be able to really create enough excitement to keep that volume and keep that momentum, and this is something, I'm not a geologist. I'll look at a report and someone will say, Karim, you're crazy. To give an example here, the Sunny Boy and Spitfire project is a small, acreage property, near Merritt, BC, by the West Haven camp, Spence's Bridge, 3.5 ounces per ton, 120, 130 grams at surface. This thing alone on a high grade, we could, custom mill it. And because of COVID, permitting has taken, a little longer than anticipated. We're finally getting back to work on this. But this is a project that can generate us 5, 10, $15 million a year. So really, Falcon is, what I'm trying to do is build it into a small scale production operation where we can produce in Argentina, Chile, BC, and the blue sky potential in Newfoundland is really why I'm there. I truly believe that Newfound Gold has something. I think that they're going to come up with a resource calculation that's probably going to shock a lot of the naysayers. And with that, in a good gold environment, as gold starts moving here, any of the companies that have anything half decent in Newfoundland are going to, be 3, 4, 5x, or maybe 3, 4, 5x, and finding something, and all of a sudden, if you look at Newfoundland, it's not one company hitting something; it's numerous companies finding. So, Newfoundland, I would put up at the top of our priority list, just because of what's happening there right now.
So, just as every baseball manager has a couple of players in the team that if they had to cut, they'd be quite okay to cut. You've got 12 properties just in Falcon. Which one, if you had to get rid of one, would you just be like, well, I can get rid of that?
That's a tough question. I love them all.
There's got to be a utility infielder in there somewhere.
The Spring Pole West is attached to First Mining. First Mining, has had a lot of success. They've gotten beat up, but they've got a system which is underwater. It's a multi-million ounce resource. We have a sizable chunk of ground right in the middle of their 2 center resource zones. If I had to drop one, it would probably be that. My objective on that one is to probably sell it to them. And if they're watching this, maybe they'll see that, and we can work a deal.
Let's work a deal.
The Spitfire, Sunny Boy, that's one that I'm quite excited about. The Burden Gold, we hold an interest in with IM Gold. It's on care and maintenance. From what I heard, they got like 50, 60, 70 guys on the ground next door to it. So I think some action is going to happen there. All the Newfoundland projects, we've been getting a lot of interest from some of the larger companies wanting to either buy or JV our ground. So I think you'll probably see a lot of activity with Newfoundland, and we'll probably keep 2 or 3 core assets. Probably the Hope Brook will become the flagship out for Newfoundland. So hope that answers your question.
Good enough. Let's switch across to Marvel Discovery, because this is one that sort of sprung out in, I guess, 2020, and it has been a fairly decent little climber in the time since. What is it about Marvel that's connecting, do you think?
Well, Marvel has a few less shares other than Falcon, not by much, maybe 15, 20 million. The one thing that maybe differentiates it is one is the name, as you said. Maybe that's attracted a few more of the younger demographic. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
The younger demographic. We've also completed a spin out, which definitely attracted a lot of interest into the company. Our first spin out is a company called Power One Resources. And the asset that we took out of Marvel is arguably one of the highest grade nickel opportunities in Canada. It's a 7-kilometer long, 4-kilometer wide, massive nickel anomaly. It's not cheap to drill. However, we turned down 2 serious offers from 2 majors to do it ourselves. And now we're kind of doing the same thing with Falcon with Latimark, which will become a spin-off for Falcon.
I guess with Marvel, you've sort of gone outside the traditional precious metals into energy metals, uranium, nickel, et cetera, et cetera. Moving into the uranium market and the nickel market at this time, pretty savvy move considering what the price action's been on the commodity. But do you think that when those moves happen, and companies start diving in, that it sort of flattens things out pretty quickly? Or are you in for uranium and nickel for the long haul, regardless of where the charts are?
I'm in it for the long haul. The project that we recently acquired in Marvel was a company called District One. I formed that company 3 years ago with a team of ex-Rio Tinto geologists. We're on the Key Lake Fault, which is the largest uranium producing region in the world, high grade. It wasn't like I just went and acquired this project last week. I was there at the beginning. I started my career in the uranium space, so I've been wanting to get back into uranium for some time. It's just the world macro environment. Timing is key, and if anyone's been following what the Arrow deposit, which is held by NextGen, they drilled into a fault very similar to what we have. We control one of the last key pieces of real estate on the Key Lake Fault, tied on to Cameco and Fission. So, just as of recently, we've kind of focused on uranium. We may do another spin out on Marvel, in the near future, and separate the gold and separate the uranium assets. So there's a few different opportunities on the table. Really, my objective with Marvel is to make the stock so valuable that anyone that's holding any Marvel shares is never going to sell them, because they get a dividend every year. And that's really the model I'm now going to be building for both Falcon and Marvel.
So there are people out there in your position who buy assets, raise money, play some golf, raise more money, play a bit more golf, threaten to drill, never drill, play some golf. And there are guys out there that I think go to the dusty ground and find guys that have interesting properties that might not be interested in selling until you've sat down with them and broken bread. Do you see yourselves as that wheeler dealer guy rather than the progress guy?
I'm here for the big win. Wheeler dealer, maybe 10%, because you have to keep people interested. And I try and stay away from the fly by night. There's lots of guys who will put out a press release just because something's hot.
Sure.
I've stayed away from that as much as I can. Falcon's a prime example. I mean, you've been following me on this, and I've doubled down, tripled down, and I'm still going at it. To answer your question, is I think Falcon has more than one opportunity for us to find something significant. Marvel is more of a spin out dividend issuer. So I think between the two, you get a nice blend. If you like the more deal flow deal side, you get to participate in all the spin-offs. And Falcon's the nice steady long-term play here, I would imagine.
Got it. So you're covering all the bases, but if someone wants specifically to just be exposed to energy metals, there's an option there for them. If someone loves what gold's going to bring in a fractious world, there's an option there for them. Is there a metal that you wouldn't take a property on? Like, is it fair game to say, if you see something attractive in vanadium, that let's get out that checkbook and get that property under the wing?
If something makes a lot of sense, yes. I mean, I'll look at anything. I mean, the one thing we pride ourselves on doing is being disruptors in this environment. Most of the projects that we've acquired for a shoestring of a budget, I mean, people thought we were crazy, and now they're coming to us saying, okay, well, we want that ground. And we do extensive geophysic modeling, go through all the government reports, and with overburden, you wouldn't even realize what you're even standing on. Gaspard is a prime example of that. We were finding 2 or 3 grams in upstream water sediment samples. We knew that there was a source there. Again, we're at Spence's Bridge, close proximity to West Haven, one of the richest areas in BC. We almost gave up on it, and we did some soil samples on the northern portion of the project, and managed to actually hit some decent numbers. So next steps is to do an airborne magnetic survey, see what the mag kind of shows, and then with overburden, there's just no way you could really cover the ground. So you have to fly it and then take a bit of a chance on drilling. But we're in the neighborhood of 40 to 60 to 80 grams, high grade in our backyard here. So, BC, I'm a big believer in BC in the geology.
So I gave you a little bit of shit early on for not buying any Falcon Gold recently, but I'm just looking at the insider documents on Marvel, and you've been a busy beaver on that one. So, one of the things that I've always liked about the way you do business is that the first person who's going to make money is going to be you, because you've got your skin in the game.
Right.
So you're right there alongside the shareholders, you're load up and you have belief in the system. And man, over the last few years, the system has grown from, what do you got, like 20 properties now across all the different companies?
I would say,
like
that sounds about right. Maybe a bit more.
Some of those, I always find it interesting when young explorers grab a property. When you read into the document, sometimes it can be kind of entertaining how cheap things were. What's the cheapest you've managed to snag so far?
On a property?
Yeah. You get a lot of those sort of like
10, 15
deals for
10,
something
15, 10, 15, 20 grand.
Yeah.
Most of our acquisitions are done on staking costs. At Hope Brook, we're tied on to Benton Sokiman, the first lithium discovery ever in Newfoundland. I think we paid 20 grand for that ground.
Hell of a deal.
So, that's what makes Falcon and Marvel, and the synergy between the two companies, 50-50 sharing costs. I have one office. We don't have 5 CEOs. We don't have 5 geologists. That's why I'm still here, and that's why I support my companies. And I believe when the dust settles, we're going to be one of the last few that has the last word. So.
I will say this in closing, because it's been an entertaining half hour. Nobody squeezes me for a marketing program better than Karim Rayani. Like 100%, you're the guy that gets the best deal every time. You bastard. Protecting shareholder assets as I have to let my people go. All right. Look, I appreciate your time. I think this is a really interesting thing. I've spoken to a lot of prospect generators in my time. That they're always the scouting teams. And I always find the problem with their model is it's a constant churn, right? It's just the same thing over and over. Get a property, flip a property, flip a property. And what you seem to be doing is instead using that flip model to flip to yourself, to expand outwards. So as that, in a couple of years, you'll be looking back and saying, not just 25, 30 properties in play, but also 3, 4, 5, 6 different companies that have spun out, giving shareholders a real benefit. So I appreciate where you're at. Falcon has trod water a little bit because it's a traded stock instead of an investor stock, but I see that maybe making change as you advance the Canada discovery.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure.